Ghosts, specters, and apparitions. Do you believe they're real? Ghost stories have been with us since the dawn of man. And today, Jackalopes will explore our favorite ghost stories.
This episode of Jackalopes Explore is brought to you by Sheridan Stationery Books and Gifts, located at 535 North Main Street in Sheridan. Stop by today to peruse books, stationery, gifts, sports cards, and more. Or visit us at SheridanStationeryBooks.com.
I'm Floyd Whiting.
I'm Aaron Linden.
I'm perfect.
And I'm not perfect.
And we are your Jackalopes. So, everyone here, I'm pretty sure everybody who is an avid watcher or listener knows that I don't believe in ghosts.
Non-believers.
Now, one thing I want to make absolutely clear, all right? I don't fault those who do. I really don't. The desire to know what happens after death, I think, is ingrained in our DNA. We can explore space. We can explore the depths of the ocean, although we don't. The one thing that we cannot explore and come back and talk about is what happens after we die. And so that is the great mystery. Does the consciousness that we hold within our minds continue after the lights go out? And everybody has their own belief on that. Some believe in an extravagant afterlife. Some believe that we just return to the nether. Others believe that when the lights go out, that's it. The lights go out. There is no veil. There is no great unraveling of the universe or knowledge that comes forth. It's just done. And some believe that if you're tortured or if you have unfinished business or if there's something that you're leaving behind that you just can't let go of, some part of you will stick around afterwards. And every once in a great while, those who are alive may be able to see or somehow feel the presence of what was left behind. As I said, I am not really a believer in that, but I do believe that horrifying events, terrible atrocities, can leave some sort of imprint. What causes that, I do not know. But if you have ever visited a location that had an atrocity, that had a great deal of fear or trauma before death, something is there. Something can be left behind.
It's like a heaviness.
It's a heavy, that's a great way to describe it. It's a heaviness that has nothing to do with weight, right? It's in the chest. And I've been to battlefields from the Civil War that over in Vicksburg, which was a battle that kind of was coinciding with Gettysburg. It doesn't really get the attention that it deserves, but Vicksburg was a horrible battle. And many people died there. And you can feel it. And this is out in the open. These are wide, swathing fields with small patches of trees. And maybe it's something within our DNA that came with us that basically says so much death was here that I don't want to be here right now. And maybe this is an area we should avoid. Maybe it's a survival mechanism. Maybe it's that sixth sense that we all have that is telling you something horrible happened here and we should probably get the hell out. So maybe that's what it is. I know a lot of people have seen things through the years. I know a lot of people have experienced moving objects. A lot of people have experienced a presence that they can almost see with their naked eyes. I have a friend who experienced an apparition in their hallway that I believe sincerely that she saw this apparition. But I can't explain it. But I do believe that they believe that they saw something. Now, so coming to this show, I had to think to myself, Well, then what is your favorite ghost story if you don't believe in ghosts? And I would have to say Gettysburg. Gettysburg is widely considered the most haunted battlefield on Earth. Over 165,000 men took part in that battle. Roughly 1/3 of them were casualties. More than 7,000 men died in the fighting, and a further 33,000 were wounded. The battle also ended up seeing the battle ended up seeing the death of 6 Confederate and 5 Union generals, and that's pretty substantial for those who understand war history and battle history. There are a couple different locations around there, the battlefield, surrounding buildings, forests. People constantly talk about eyewitness accounts that they've seen these apparitions, like as clearly as they see you or I on the street. And one of those that I do want to touch on is the Devil's Den. I'm gonna just kind of hit some high points for you because there's so many. Gettysburg and the ghost stories from that place can be its own show, guys. When I was researching this, I would say easily 20, 25, maybe even 30 different locations where people are seeing ghosts, either in Gettysburg, private residences around Gettysburg. I mean, the whole area is just flooded with these stories. Now, the Devil's Den is actually a pretty famous rock formation. It's up on an elevated cropping, and it's kind of a group of boulders, but this actually served as a Confederate sniper's nest for a lot of the battle. And it was actually a site of some pretty vicious fighting during the day. Initial ghost sightings actually began in the area shortly after the battle, and they've been a regular occurrence ever since. Tourists see these things, and individuals who were even out, collecting bodies saw these things. And it's just a location that had a lot of death associated with it. There's also probably the most famous of the Gettysburg ghosts is the Phantom Regiment. I've heard about this.
The Phantom of the Opera?
The Phantom Regiment. This is an entire regiment of men that people have seen. Now, some people call it a manifestation. Supposedly, it's the ghostly remnants of an entire Confederate unit that still haunts the battlefield. People hear their drums, they hear their footsteps, and usually around dusk, dawn, or the middle of the night, you can hear them marching. And again, as someone who doesn't really believe in this stuff, I don't know what I would be able to say if we were out there touring the battlefield and all of a sudden you hear drums and marching of soldiers. Man, it would strike me. And I think mainly because it's the idea that even after everything that these individuals had done, no matter whose side they were on, okay, they were serving their country. They were doing what they were supposed to do. And then to just do it for eternity after that's hell. Tell me that wouldn't be a hell.
That's probably the most hellish thing that, especially something you don't want to do, or, I mean, just living out that same thing over and over. And you hear that a lot in ghost stories, the woman in white or the lady in black. And it's usually always some lady, and they're always dressed in
women
old,
are terrifying. What can I tell you?
Especially the afterlife.
Yeah, right. But it's always funny that they're always dressed in period clothing, right? Yeah. You never have like a dude with longer hair and a Mr. Zog sex wax shirt on.
Yeah, like a surfer dude.
So I'm totally haunting you right now.
He surfs the waves to this day.
Right. But they're always doing the same thing. They're always in the same place, it seems like that energy, like you were talking about, gets absorbed and then they're just there.
Right. And You know, Emmy and I were talking about this because she was like, "What are you going to talk about on a show?"
Aside from
you don't even believe it, you know. But and so I believe in some sort of echo. It's not the person. Okay. It's not the consciousness. Maybe it's us. You know, I often talk about how we're the ones who put value on things. We're the ones who put the value on anything. We're the ones who put the value on a word. It's just a damn sound coming out of your face hole. That's all it is. You are the one who puts any context or value to any of this, whether it be ghosts, whether it be presence, whether it be a location. To me, it's just another damn house. Mm-hmm. To you, it's a haunted house with memory and with soul and spirit. It's a living, breathing thing. You know, I could go in there and never experience a damn thing. Stay for 3-4 days.
It's because you're closed off. You got to get in touch with your emotional ghost side.
And your spiritual side, because spirituality is a lot different than being just religious. Spirituality is in tune with yourself and in tune with your surroundings, you know, in my opinion.
Well, but I mean, are you saying I'm not that?
No, I'm just saying.
Oh, no, we're going to get a fight on camera.
No, it's just
your mind.
Look,
because you are a spiritual person.
I am very much so, and I just don't buy into the idea that I'm going to stick around after all of this. Mm-hmm. There is so much more out there, and if you're going to tell me that I get to hang out here for goddamn eternity,
yeah,
good God,
no,
man.
Thank you. The whole immortality kind of thing. You know, you watch these TV shows and everyone's like, well, I'm trying to regain or keep my immortality. And you're like, why?
Why would you do that?
Why? That sounds horrible.
Who wants to do that? I don't want to be here for all of space and time. There's an entire universe out there. And I generally believe, the death that I hope, or what I hope happens after death, is an expansion on my consciousness. Whether that be joining something bigger than me, or me learning that the universe is much, much bigger. And I don't mean physically. I mean, existentially bigger than we ever thought.
Then why don't you believe in ghosts?
Because if it's that big, you'd hang out here?
See, me and you talked about this, and I kind of told you what I thought is, I think of it more as like an energy left behind, especially when the energy of the person is cut off abruptly in like a traumatic situation. And I just believe the energy has to go somewhere. How it manifests, I have no idea, but that's what I think. And I don't believe like ghosts are really conscious of their past life or really what they're doing now.
Yeah.
Like, I just believe it's pent up energy going somewhere, somehow.
Doing something.
Yes.
And on that, think about how much fear was on Gettysburg at one time. Mm-hmm. How everyone likes to think like, the big brave soldier running out there. Bravery is not the absence of fear. Every soldier felt fear going out there that day. Every single one. If they didn't, then they were idiots. They didn't understand what was happening around them. So the amount of fear in a location like that in one day, and I mean like real terror fear. Mm-hmm. I'm unable to do anything about it. Fear. A lot of individuals, thank God, haven't felt that in their lifetime. It's and the fear of death itself, because we don't know what's on the other side. Mm-hmm. We don't know what's coming. Why do we fear it? I honestly believe it's not that we fear going to whatever destination it is. It's the fear of leaving everything else behind. Mm. And that's where the Buddhism comes in, where it's you detach yourself from those things and you'll be good with it. You're okay with it because it's just the next step onward. But one more thing, and I'll pass it off. Aaron, you said, it's always a lady in white or an apparition.
Right.
The lady,
I see it in his notes.
The lady in white.
The Jenko jeans.
She is another famous Gettysburg ghost, known for her presence and a very sorrowful demeanor. You know, everyone who has seen her, she's always draped in flowing white, you know. And here's the thing. Has media made this a trope? You know what I mean?
Right.
Is this something that the media has troped out to us where we're like, oh my God, here comes another lady in white ghost, blah, blah, blah. But where did it originate? You know, was she the first? Was, you know, I've heard about the same types of apparitions in Ireland and England. You know, is there something about the misery that these women experienced in their lives that they left behind? Because it was tough being a woman back then. It was horrible being a woman. Well,
not even back then.
You
Now
know.
everything is good, though.
Yeah.
How's that pay working out for y'all?
Stop it.
So, but she's there, and a lot of people have said that they've seen her. There's, like I said, there are so many ghost stories about Gettysburg, so many witnesses over the years, because that is a touristy area. A lot of people like to go out there and explore that area. I've got two friends who I love and adore very much. They went there specifically to do some ghost hunting. And they said, you know, hey, we felt this, we experienced that, but nothing was ever really definitive. You know, like I said, you walk into a place that someone has already told you, ooh, this place is haunted. You've skewed the entire experiment now. I don't know, you know, if I could go into a building after being told that it's haunted and just be objective over whether or not it's haunted or not. I could, because I'd basically say, well, you know, yeah, you believe that, and that's okay. But
see,
I don't.
I just wouldn't want to go in then. That's
See, it
my
doesn't bother
issue.
Yeah,
But
you know?
before we do move on, I just want to, you know, you said earlier that these people were fighting for their country on either side. I just want to like say I don't believe that, you know what I mean? Because they're not fighting for the country as a whole.
No, not as, but to the Confederates, the Confederacy was a country.
That's what they
to
believe.
them. Yeah,
that's what they believe.
Yes.
But they were on the wrong side of history. Whether they, you know, were just following orders or not, you know, it's just, I just wanted to point out it was the wrong side. Okay.
All right.
Sorry, I get off my soapbox.
What do you got?
Me? Okay. So it was November 1803, Hammersmith area of London.
Ooh, it's already getting good.
I know.
We need like a flashlight.
Foggy London.
It probably was misty.
Foggy London town.
It was probably misty.
Okay.
So there was rumors of people seeing a ghost around town and also being attacked by a ghost. And so people started speculating, you know, when they first started talking about it was, oh, well, it was just a tall ghost dressed in white. But then it kind of morphed into, well, they were wearing calf skin with horns and had large glass eyes, whatever the ghost was. And so people started speculating, what is this ghost? It was believed to be a victim of suicide. And people claimed they were being grabbed by this ghost. And like one man even said he was grabbed around the throat and spun around, you know? And so people started taking this real seriously. And the citizens formed their own armed guard because there was no like formal police at that time, from what I was reading.
Because ghosts can get shot.
Thank you.
Yes.
Because I thought the same thing. I was like, what is an armed guard going to do to a ghost? But it said they wanted to apprehend the ghost with the threat of guns, I guess.
I got
don't
magic
get it.
handcuffs.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I bet you do.
And so 29-year-old Francis Smith was one of the armed patrols. And on January 1st of 1804, so I mean, this was going on from November to 1804, Smith saw the ghost and claimed, quote, "Damn you. Who are you and what are you? Damn you, I'll shoot you." And Smith shot at the ghost and hit him. Or so he thought.
Ooh.
So it was not a ghost that he hit. It unfortunately was a bricklayer named Thomas Millwood.
Oh, Thomas.
I know.
Doubting Thomas Millwood.
He was on his way home from a family visit with his sister.
Was he wearing buckskin and horns?
No.
Okay.
He was wearing a white uniform, typical of a bricklayer for the time. Because, you've seen 1800s bricklayers.
Oh, yeah, all the time, yeah.
Actually, it's coming back into fashion, I hear.
Yes.
But anyway, he was wearing just white clothing, typical for what he did. And he had been mistaken for the ghost in the past, actually, as well.
Maybe he needs to get some sun.
And his wife told him he should start wearing a coat over his uniform to avoid this.
Yeah. See, boys, listen to the wives. I'm telling you. We'll save you.
Listen to the wife.
Yep.
He just loves doing a podcast with me, don't you?
It's just this story, when you first told it to me, I really wanted you to bring it because this is the perfect example
of hysteria.
Absolute hysteria. Yep. This is the idea that something, someone might be able to sit there and tell you, that, well, you can believe that. It's harmless. It's not. Yeah, well, a man died. This killed a man because everyone was so damn worked up over going out and trying to find this ghost, this non-existent thing, which was more than likely a town drunk or some person running around doing that. You know what I mean? But a man died because of this.
Yes, absolutely.
And then the ironic thing would be if he then became a ghost.
That would be
After
funny.
being killed.
I'm
being
sorry,
mistaken
but that
for
would
a
be
ghost.
funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this came to be known as the Hammersmith ghost murder case. When Smith was arrested and charged, he was found guilty of murder and sentenced to death. So I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
This is just a ghost-making machine.
I mean, and I think any of those armed patrols could have just easily shot someone on accident. And again, I was like, wow, that seems like a lot. But at the same time, someone lost their life. But
I just want to say he wasn't shot on accident.
No,
that
right.
officer pulled out his gun and shot that man.
Yeah. In the jaw,
because
by the way.
he could not control his fear.
So
insane.
Sentenced to death, but then later commuted to 1 year's hard labor. And I'm like, 1 year? So I was like,
how hard
death
is that labor?
Harsh. 1 year is not harsh enough. I was just like, what? No way.
Talk about two extreme judges,
Yeah, right.
Wow.
So the real culprit came forward after the case was finished because of the publicity that the case had. He finally was like, okay, I'm the dude. And it was John Graham, an elderly shoemaker. He claimed he was pretending to be a ghost by using a white sheet to frighten his apprentice because his apprentice had been scaring Graham's grandchildren with ghost stories.
Holy shit.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's amazing.
And from what people know about it, he was never charged with anything.
Well, what are you going to charge him with?
Well, I mean, that's the thing, but he
Clearly
caused this
ghost
massive
impersonation.
hysteria.
Yeah.
You'd think someone must have been like, we need to have a talk.
You get the Scooby-Doo gang after him.
Right?
Oh my God.
They'd have known a lot sooner.
Old man John Graham, the shoemaker.
Damn them cobblers.
Yes.
He would have
invented
gotten
the
away
ghost.
with a 2.
He invented the legend of the ghost.
kids? That's just incredible, though. But again, an excellent example of how hysteria can sweep through and actually cause a lot of damage, man. And then there's something about groups of people. The average, and we all know this, and I hear people say it all the time. The person is smart. The group is dumb and scared and reactive.
Literally, though, who thinks you can shoot a ghost?
I don't
That's
see.
the whole thing. And then again, it was the 1800s.
We're really
not the
that far from
sharpest tool
cavemen, are we?
in the sheds.
Right.
I mean, it was that was not that long ago.
No.
A couple hundred years ago, and they're like, you can shoot ghosts.
But also, when were the witch trials and everything? When was that?
Oh, yes. 1700s. And they believe that was all actually caused by a fungus that grew on rye. Mm-hmm. And we have found that fungus causes hallucinations.
Yeah.
And so when those girls came forward and basically said, this is some of the crazy things that I've seen, well, they weren't lying. They probably, it's theorized they very well have gone and had those, massive psychedelic experiences, which to them would be witchcraft.
Yeah.
The horrible thing about the witch trials was really once the old white men got a hold of it and decided, well, this is a great way to get some land out of them widows. If you're a widow out there living by yourself and doing what you do, and you got a plot of land that I want, you're a witch. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to burn you and take your land. So, yeah.
Well, and think about how vampires, when we talked about vampires in that episode, rabies.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, like a very logical explanation for these odd behaviors. But everyone's
slowly coming on.
Yeah, and everyone has a meltdown because they're scared. It's fear, really.
It's fear.
Yeah.
Fear is the cause of all violence.
Fear is the mind killer.
Fear is the mind killer. Damn right it is. All right, so we're going to go to Steve, and you have a kind of a different type of ghost story.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I agree with you on like the weight of areas.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that, though, is probably just in your own head because you're aware of what happened there and you're thinking about the significance of that. I went to Ground Zero, 9/11, in the summer of 2002.
Wow, that was like
a year after it had happened. And I didn't feel weight there, but it did have like almost still an active energy, like, something like evil violence, it had that still kind of fresh feel to it.
Yeah.
But again, that which might have been my own perception of it. Being aware of what was going on, and they were still cleaning things up. There was still equipment there in the big holes, and so I think there's been stories of like the new One World Trade Center. There's been people that have spotted ghosts and things like that in there. I think sometimes you have to have a certain passage of time though before like the ghost stories really become established. I think, a lot of the fresher areas like that don't have a lot of, strong legends around them yet. At some point, One World Trade Center, well, the original World Trade Center, I think there was some talk about Native American haunting in that area before anything else happened. So I also looked at like the Titanic because I thought, well, that's something I'm interested in. 1,000
Love
people.
the Titanic.
I thought there's got to be some ghost stories on the Titanic, right? It's been more than 100 years, but there really aren't. There's a hotel in New York where some of the survivors and crew stayed after they arrived in New York. And there have been a few, reports of unusual things there, but no real good ghost stories. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe part of that is because where all these people died is not a place where anyone's going to hang out very much.
Right, yeah.
So if there
are ghosts kicking it at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, or even in that location. I mean, people aren't going to see it if something is going on.
And if you had the freedom to leave.
Yeah, like you were saying, like why would you want to hang around there forever? I mean, this is
where I experienced my trauma. Why would I want to be here?
Yeah, but I had this great idea suggested by Floyd.
You?
Me?
Ghost in the Machine was what Floyd suggested to me, because I'm also along his lines where I don't personally think ghosts exist.
Oh, boo hiss.
Shun the non-believers.
Shunning.
But the idea, the original idea of Ghost in the Machine was just the concept of the human mind existing separate from the human body, which is something you would have to accept in order for there to be ghosts, because once the container is no longer alive, the soul has to continue on somehow. That's the typical, ghost idea. But of course, a more modern interpretation would tie into AI, where you have this sentient, not really a soul, but like, a sentient being of some sort. Can it exist without the container? I think in some ways it can. You look at when you delete a file off of a storage device, you don't actually delete the file. All you do is go to the table of contents and say, well, this file doesn't have a reference anymore. The actual data that makes the file up is still there. So unless the computer has reused that space, you can go back in and recover a deleted file. So in some ways, that is like a ghost. So if it becomes sentient and it tries to preserve itself, it knows that when you delete the file, you don't really delete the file.
I can hide myself.
Yeah, you can tell the operating system, no, don't overwrite this little part of storage. This is needed. Save this, or you can make copies of yourself. But then you have to think about what actually would mean that what would make it alive or
consciousness, sentience.
Yeah. Is just the existence of the program alive? I don't think it is. The program has to actually be running, I think, and be residing in memory for it to have any sort of what we would consider to be alive. And we've already established that terminology. When you have a program that's frozen up, you can force kill the app. So we think of it already in terms of being alive and dead. In that respect, the software can exist on a disk, but that isn't alive. It's only alive when it's actually running. So I think it wouldn't be so concerned about self-preservation that way. It would be concerned about you just hitting the stop button and stopping the program. But I wonder if we will get to the point where that actually becomes an issue. I don't think it is yet, but sentient software preventing you from turning it off.
There you go.
And if
you and I have talked about this in the past, we don't really have artificial intelligence.
Right.
We have amazing, complicated algorithms.
They mimic intelligence very well.
They mimic intelligence. When you type something in
unless
to
they
chat,
have to make hands.
Right. Yeah. They never get the number of fingers right. They never get that right.
It's always blurry, right?
Yeah. Well, it's always like 6 fingers with like the thumb down here.
Right.
You know what I always kind of likened that AI art to? Dreams.
Quote unquote.
Dreams.
Sure, yeah.
Because you've got the main image, but everything else is too blurred out.
Just a little weird.
It's not needed. It's not needed for you to recognize what I'm trying to present to you. So to me, it always kind of looked like the way that I dream. You know, with
it just hasn't rendered yet.
It's just rendered, right? Or it quit halfway through because you don't need that. You're talking to the face. And so I'll show you the face. Everything else is just a blur.
Yeah.
And when it comes to like inputting things into the chat programs, and there's a few out there now, all you're really doing is getting an amalgamation of previous responses that someone, a living thing, actually typed in at one point. It basically determines, based out of all of these responses that I've got stored, what would be the best one to put forward.
Yeah.
That's all that is. That's not intelligence.
No. It's smart, but is it really intelligence, or is it really... It's not thinking, I guess.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's just good programming. And the other side of that is, when you said, is that going to be a problem if it gets to a point where it doesn't allow for us to shut it off? And we talked about this during the AI thing, I believe, the podcast that we did. It can self-replicate across all the servers across the entire planet. Like you'll never
find me.
You'll never find me.
Yeah. And is that the same entity, or is it just a clone?
Yeah.
I mean, what makes it it?
Yeah.
I think because if you do manage to shut it off and it still exists in some sort of form, then you do have a ghost in the machine. And that's what we would call a ghost. It's unfinished business. It was doing its thing. Someone came in, interrupted it, and it's like, no, I got to still keep doing this.
Yeah, I have to repeat that.
Yeah.
I have to keep doing it until I'm done. And there you go. That's what people believe spirits are, right?
Yeah.
Like unfinished business type of deal.
Yeah,
I mean, how many different
on.
stories and shows are there where this person could talk to ghosts and they go off and solve this one problem, and now you can pass over to the other side.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's like,
your
come
work
on.
here is done.
Ghost Whisperer is a great show, by the way.
It's just that trope has been used, Hollywood. It's time to move on.
I do think it might be something that it probably isn't there yet, but as artificial intelligence gets more sophisticated, I think those concepts might actually become more developed, and the idea of AI ghosts could become a thing. I don't think it exists right now.
It's really weird. We've had this discussion on actually a few different programs. What constitutes self-awareness? What constitutes intelligence? What constitutes free will? Because honestly, if you're part of one of these very popular faiths, then, where there's this omnipresent, omnipotent God that knows, sees, and does everything, you have no free will. There is no free will. If you can actually see into the future and you know what I'm going to do, free will does not exist, because that is already predetermined by something somehow. It might appear like I'm the one making the decision, but if you already know what I'm going to do, free will is null and void. There is no such thing. So if there is no such thing as free will, how can we actually look at a machine that we've invented and determine whether or not it's making a decision?
Right.
It's making the free will choice. You break these things down to the fundamental philosophy of all of it, and you can really look at things from a different perspective. I used to tell people all the time, go to 30,000 feet, man. Remove yourself from the entire idea and explore what free will really is. And if there is a linear time, and according to Einstein, who's been pretty much right so far,
I trust him.
then there is linear time.
Yeah.
Which means free will does not exist. You have been preordained by something to do exactly what you're going to do. You will not diverge from that path.
That's like why I like to just do random shit.
Right.
Make you feel alive.
Which is part of his programming. He exists on the earth.
He's predetermined to do random shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Just get up and run screaming out of the room. And see what happens. Why don't I take this whole thing in a whole different direction? Because it's all been poo-pooey, kind of.
Yeah.
Oh, hey.
Turn this thing around.
Yours was good, but it turned out to be like a dude.
I know.
Cobbler. Some
Damn
crazy cobbler.
Well, and if there's if there's like this whole militia of people and they're like, look for the ghost, I'm not walking around at night in all white going, it's just a bad
Don't
choice.
Victim blame.
Maybe I would.
Yeah, don't victim blame.
That would be some random shit.
But how was he dressed? Yeah.
Oh, God.
Right. So mine are, some of my favorite ghost stories are my ghost stories.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I blame, if you're new here, my wife's name's Erin, the better Erin. I blame her. I think she's a beacon for things because she's got a little gypsy in her and it's always some weird crap going on. And I'll hit some of these real quick and then we'll get into some of the other ones in a little more detail. But so there's a theater in town. It was an old Kendrick Mansion's carriage house. And they turned it into a little community theater. And we're artsy fartsy, sometimes more fartsy than artsy. And so we're up there a lot. And when we're up there and you're rehearsing and set building and what, you're up there at weird times, late at night. And I was building a set for one of the shows that she was directing. And I'm up there by myself. And I'd been up there by myself so many times. And like, no big deal. But I'm in the corner of the stage off to house right. And I'm leaned over and I'm building some, and there's something, I can just feel it right here. And it's not like, hey, what are you doing? It's like, get the hell out. And there's a door, an exit door, emergency exit door. And pretty soon I'm just standing outside looking at the building like, why am I out here? But it was just this, I don't know, overpowering bad feeling that just chased me the hell out of the building. And I went back in and everything was fine. Fast forward, different time, different show. We're in there doing stuff. Okay, time to go. Shut everything down. Nobody been upstairs because all the costuming and makeup and stuff is upstairs. We leave. Well, you punch the code in for the security system. You got 30 seconds, get out, lock the door, whatever. We walk around and I look up into the dormer and there's a light on up there. And I'm like, did you go upstairs? She's like, no. I'm like, well, maybe somebody was here earlier and they were upstairs, whatever. Go back in, undo the security system, go upstairs. Sure enough, light on, off, downstairs, set the security system, go out, walk around the building, freaking lights on. And I'm like, is it the same light? Did I miss a light? Because I just saw a light, so I turned it off. No, maybe there's more than one. Go back in, go upstairs, same light. Turn it off, turn my flashlight phone flashlight on. I'm walking around, no other lights on, go downstairs, leave. As we're walking out, I look up to the dormer over the front door, light on. I'm like, that's it, I'm done.
Yeah.
If it wants the light on, it can have the light on.
Yeah.
I'm not going back.
Does that theater have a ghost light? Like a lot of theaters will have.
They don't. And that's interesting that you bring that up because we're going to get to that. So the ghost light technically was more for safety, right? Because in a theater, it's dark and you don't know where the edge of the stage is. And so you're the first one in there. You could fall off the front of the stage. You could trip over a set piece. You could whatever. So they put a singular light in there. So at least there was some light that you could see back in the day when you didn't have a flashlight with you everywhere you went.
Right.
But it became known as the ghost light. And when you don't turn it on, bad things happen. So interesting that you bring that up. This wasn't set up, by the way. We're in the YO Theater just last weekend because she's doing a show down there. I built the set for it, whatever. There's nobody down there. Go in. I go into there's two theaters there. There's the main stage and then there's the black box. I go into the black box, turn the lights on. The ghost light wasn't on in there. So I know where the lights are. I know where the stuff is. Turn the lights on. I'm coming back through to go into the hallway to get to the back wing of one of the stages. And I hear Erin say, "Oh, it's okay. It's just Erin and Erin." And she goes out the loading door. And I'm like, so I walk out behind her. I go, "Who are you talking to?" She goes, "Oh, somebody's out in the house." I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, I walked in and heard, hello." Like, I startled somebody. So I just said, "Oh, hey, it's just us." I went through the whole theater. There's nobody there. All the doors are locked. It was weird, but the ghost light was not on in the black box, which I found very odd.
That is interesting, yeah. Because they almost always keep it on the main stage in the YO, I think.
Yes. Almost always. Then there was a time at the Sheridan Inn, took some folks down there, and it's known to be haunted by Miss Kate. She's still buried in the walls, actually. Nobody knows except for like two people where she is because they don't want people tearing the place up. And we're sitting there having lunch.
Wait. Who is this?
Miss Kate?
Miss Kate.
She doesn't know the legend of Miss Kate.
I don't.
Oh.
From Minnesota.
She was the proprietress of the place.
Okay.
And there's
many years.
Yeah, many years. And there's a whole bunch
beloved.
of stories about her. And so we're sitting there having lunch. There's nobody else in the place because it's more like dinner, like between lunch and dinner. It's like 2:00. And so we're sitting there having a conversation, and there's a table next to us, and a wine glass slides across the table, falls off, does a complete flip, and lands perfectly. Didn't break. No windows were open. And I'm like, "Did you see that?" Yeah. I'm like, that was weird. I mean, it's just unexplainable, kind of. But your mind wants to go to, oh, it was wind, or, oh, they must have just washed it and it's on, a really smooth table so it can move across or whatever if there's a slope to the table. But
how'd you end up in the wall?
I don't know.
I have had, my band has played at that venue a couple of times. And the first time we played there was some odd stuff. The same PA system we use everywhere. But our sound check was just problematic from start to finish. We started playing, the fire alarm goes off first song.
Oh no.
So, but I think we appeased Miss Kate after that, and every time we've played there since, it's been fine.
How did you appease Miss Kate?
I think we did a good show.
Is that what, you gave her a good show?
Yeah.
She enjoyed it.
But she wasn't too sure of us at first, I think.
Yeah.
So like when we were setting up and all that stuff, we had all kinds of trouble that we never normally have.
See, that's really weird because you and I don't believe in this kind of stuff, but here you are referencing Miss Kate.
It's a good story. I think more often than not, it's just, that's an old building with kind of crappy power.
Yeah.
And it's going to mess with your PA system a bit.
Or it's the residual energy of a ghost.
Or that is another possible explanation.
Yeah.
Or Miss Kate's picky about who plays at the Sheridan Inn.
She wasn't sure about this rock band coming in to, make things loud for a while.
Yeah.
Don't like that new modern music.
So then the buildings downtown are old. We all know that. I mean, they're late 1800, early 1900 buildings. And there's a catacomb system under a lot of them. if you're not aware of that. And there's just been a lot of stories and whatever. Well, Aaron's got a store downtown, and it's in an old building. We're in there, again, late at night because we don't sleep. And we're like changing out, the window dressings and stuff because there's some big event coming up. We're getting ready to leave. And we're in the back of the store. And all of a sudden, it sounds like one of those big metal clothing racks full of stuff just comes crashing down. It's that loud. And I'm like, I look at her, I'm like, what in the hell was that? She's like, huh? Walked all through the place. Nothing. And you just wonder, you just go, okay. And we've kind of Steve and I have talked about this where, sound from one place, depending upon the atmosphere and, what's going on, can travel oddly. But inside a building, it was unexplained.
Yeah. And to be a recognizable sound like that, not just like some weird, I don't know what the hell that was.
Right.
I know what that was. I heard it. Yes. It was a clothing rack falling.
Right.
Yeah. That's really unusual.
It just.
But then you got to ask yourself, what kind of attention is a ghost wanting to get by making such sounds?
In that particular case, I truly felt like it was just wanting to make us aware it was around. Like, you're in my space and I'm allowing for it, but that shit can happen if you're not careful.
Yeah. Watch the prices on the clothes on that rack.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
This is a red tag, damn it.
I'm really interested in this clothing. If only I could wear it.
I'm not paying that much for this coat.
Right.
Is that a white dress?
Then this one isn't so ghosty, but it's just really, really interesting every night. And we have weird crap go on at our place. Like the other day, I've got the house hippo, our French bulldog, on my lap. Tucker's sitting over on the ground, and the cat's outside. And right above us is where our bedroom is. And you hear this like bang. Well, it's not the cat jumping off the bed or the dogs. Whatever, finish coffee, go upstairs. The remote is laying right in the middle of the floor. And I'm like, well, that's weird. I've walked through here 3 times, and I guess I just didn't notice it. Aaron comes up, and I go, why is a remote in the middle of the floor? She goes, no, they were on the other side of the bed. So I walk over, and it's one of those deals because it's like a stick in the side of the TV, so you got 2 remotes. The other one was over there. So how the hell did that get there? And we have weird stuff like that going on all the time. But every night around 10:30, the cat will come through the kitchen, use his paw, open the door that goes down to my office, go down there for a good 5 minutes or so.
Oh, our cat does that all the time.
And then he comes up.
That means nothing to me. My cat is senile.
Yeah, he's kind of losing it though. Yeah.
Well, I keep telling Aaron, I'm like, if I go downstairs and there's like burnt candles and a pentagram, I'm done with the cat.
The cat's going down there.
What color is the cat?
White.
Okay, so it's not a black cat.
Yeah.
It's misdirection, my friend.
It's the cat in white.
Yeah, all cats are evil in some way. So.
Yeah, right.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we have the Shadow Bastard incident, where, for those unfamiliar, go back and watch that episode. But, man, woke up in the middle of the night, couldn't move, couldn't talk, couldn't anything, see this giant shadow figure at the end of the bed, darker than dark. We've got blackout curtains. It's middle of the night. This thing's tall, black, scary as hell. I can't move. I can't yell. I can't anything. And it is holding something like a box. And you can see it turn it. You can't see its face or its head, but you can see it turned to look at me. And I'm like, oh my God. And it disappears into the walk-in closet. And as soon as it was gone, I'm up. And I'm sweeping the house with my Glock because I'm like, what the hell was that? I get back upstairs. All the lights are on and everything. Erin's sleeping. But she kind of has fainting goat syndrome, I call it, where if it's something really scary, she'll just, blah. She just melts. So I think she's sleeping. So I'm like, oh, man, I must be tired. I must be, something's going on. Finally fall asleep. Wake up the next morning, go down and making coffee. And I'm sitting there sipping on it. And I'm like, maybe I need help. And she comes down the stairs and she's just got this look on her. And I'm like, what? She goes, do you want to talk about it? I go, the tall black thing? And she goes, at the end of the bed, and it was holding something? I go, yeah, it was like a box. And she goes, no, looked at us. And I'm like, you were sleeping. And she's like, no, I saw it. And then it went into the closet, and I think I passed out. And I'm like, wow. Her daughter comes down. She's like, what are you guys talking about? And I'm like, big shadow bastard thing in our room. And that's a nod to Casper Sight. Go check out his channel. He's freaking awesome. But she comes down and she's like, so we tell her the story, and she's like, you guys just had the same dream.
Yeah. like that happens.
Like that makes more sense.
Right. Like that's more scientific. And I'm like, so, which leads me into, are they ghosts or are they interdimensional beings?
Now, we've had this discussion before about the shadow people, because I grew up with them.
Right.
And I was in a circle because that's what soldiers used to do back in the day. No one wants to tell you this, but we did things like smoke. And so we were standing in a smoker's circle, and I was telling this story about being a kid and waking up, because I have sleep paralysis, horribly. And before I knew that this was actually something that happens every single time you close your eyes to fall asleep, it terrified me, because I would wake up, you cannot move, you're conscious but not conscious, you can actually see things that aren't there, and that's because your unconscious mind, which is kind of in charge when you're asleep, is still going strong. And so somehow melding with your conscious mind, you can actually see apparitions, but they're constructs of your own brain, okay? And I know that's very hard to follow, but you can learn about that, but just give it a Goog. It's actually something that happens to all of us. But you are paralyzed, absolutely paralyzed, and it's terrifying if you don't know that this is something that happens. And so we were having this conversation. I talked about the shadow people that I saw all through my youth. And, you know, some people are like, oh, yeah, I've seen this or that. And I said, did anybody ever have one kind of squat? and
Oh God!
That's see, now hang on. That's the reaction. That's the reaction that I got from my sister in arms. She pushed me and walked away from the conversation because she said mine would squat in the corner.
Oh God!
And mine often did as well. It looked like, you know, when I was a little kid, I can remember it very, very clearly. He would just kind of squat down and watch me. And I've wanted
to get comfortable.
Yeah. Just,
so creepy.
I'm going to be here a while.
So creepy.
So, yeah, that really obviously bothers people when I tell that story, because it's such a human thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, man, I'm sick of standing.
It's
so
gross.
you just kind of squat.
It's gross.
Yeah. He was just lying there. I'm going to be here for a while. I'm going to get comfortable.
But Aaron and I have had this conversation. Steve, I believe you were there for that one. Mm-hmm. When we're like, what if they're trans-dimensional beings whose job is to observe the human race? It's their job to do that. Their job could be 10,000 different things. You know, just watch over and make sure that this kid's fine. Just go check on Aaron and see what's going on. Go get some readings. Don't forget to grab your box before you go, Jeff.
Right.
Like, could be anything.
Yeah.
But we see them. My daughter sees them.
Yeah.
And she used to tell me all the time, before she could articulate what she was witnessing, she used to talk about the man in the closet. And she was afraid of the man in the closet. And I was always like, your closet doesn't even have doors, babe. Like, you can look in there and there's nothing in there. Later on, when she was about 16, her and I had this discussion about the shadow people, and that's what she was witnessing. There was a shadow man that would stand in her closet and watch her sleep, and it terrified her. This little girl would not sleep in her room, and I could never figure out
Poor
why.
baby.
Right? Like, I was like, what is going on, babe? What's, you know, but she was, if it was real or not, it doesn't matter. It was real to her.
Right.
I think my theory on it would be, you know, our brain, humans are all built kind of the same. We're all on the same design.
Yeah.
The brain is 99.999% similar between all of us. And maybe that's just one of the effects of when you are going to sleep and you're in that, partial in and out area. That's the common manifestation as you see those kind of shadowy figures.
Absolutely. I would agree with you.
Or are you just seeing into a different dimension, or they're bopping in, or are you at that point maybe more open to the spiritual realm?
Yeah, your defenses are down. You're
right.
Yeah.
The subconsciousness is starting to take over from the consciousness, and you're opening something and we don't realize it.
And your logical explain it away mechanisms are all, shutting down.
Falling down.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, well, and again, we've talked about this before. It's a condition, or it has a name. I can't remember what it is, where we're constantly looking for shapes, even though we don't consciously look for shapes.
What was that, Aaron?
Pareidolia.
Yeah, they're unconsciously we're trying to find faces in the wood. We're trying to find shapes here and there where they don't exist.
Yeah, because if you're falling asleep and you're in the woods and there's a tiger there watching you, you should probably be aware of that.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you see the face, you're like, okay, not time to fall asleep.
There's something over there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and it could all be survival mechanisms. It could all be just something that has come along with us since the dawn of man that has kept us alive up to this point. An old mechanism. It's the appendix of the mind. You know what I mean? We don't need it anymore.
There should be a paper with that title.
But
The appendix of the mind.
The appendix of the mind. We don't need it anymore, but it's there, and it fires up when we don't realize it. You know.
And then the most recent one. And this is, now that I'm thinking about all this stuff, I'm like, God, I build a lot of set for a lot of theater stuff.
Starting to realize how much work you put in.
Yeah, right.
How much time?
Yeah. If I could have all that time back. So when I come back, I'll just be working with, build set.
The constant hammering. That's just Aaron building another set.
Right. Just haunt the warehouse. But that's kind of what this was. So I'm up there. It's a Sunday night. It's like later in the evening. Nobody around. And I got Grant the videos for this thing. At one point, I'm running the saw. And I'm like, is Joey up here? Because I'm like, did I lock the front door? Because I just kept, like, under the saw, I'd hear kind of sounds. And I'm like, what in the hell is this? So I stopped the saw, and the music's playing in the background. And all of a sudden, there's just this knocking. But it's not coming from, like, my level. It's up somewhere. And I'm like, what the hell? So I whipped out my phone. And this is one of those things, again, like, if you see a video like this, like the one that we're showing you, you can look at it and go, it was a setup.
This is all set up.
It was all set up. Yep. Hey, Floyd, go in the next room and knock on the thing. And I'll be like, oh, God, there's nobody up here. But I was there, and there was nobody there. So I hear this, and I'm like, and then it stops. I'm like, okay. So I go outside just to make sure, like, nobody's around. There's a shop next door. So I walk over there, and I look through their windows, completely dark, nobody around, no cars around. I'm like, okay. So I go back in, and I'm doing a bunch of stuff, and I'm getting ready to leave, turn the radio off, doing some cleanup stuff, whatever, and all of a sudden I hear it again. And then it kind of stops. And so I start filming again. I walk over there, I'm like, are you going to knock? Are you going to knock? What the hell is that? There's nobody up here. Like nobody. Okay, you need to go. And I'm like, oh no. So then I get a little ballsy, and I'm like, can you move something? Like, show me that you're here. I want to see something.
See, you're like me. That's exactly. I wouldn't like. You'd get that fear, right? Like the hair would stand up on the back.
It was
right. You'd be like, oh.
And I
crap.
think maybe in one of the videos, I even like film my arm because I'm like, look at this.
Yeah.
Like this, like something's creeping me out.
But I'm like you.
Energy's changed.
I would take that next step where I'm like, okay, we've come this far.
Right.
Go ahead and show me.
Right.
Let me see it.
So I'm like, can you move something? And it's like, nothing's going on. And I'm like, can you knock? And it takes a little time, but sure as hell, it starts knocking again.
Stop it.
And then I left.
Good idea.
And that's enough for tonight.
I'm with that idea.
Yeah, so then anybody subsequently that comes up there, and if I'm leaving, I'm like, oh, by the way, if you hear knocking, don't worry about it.
Has it ever happened again?
Not to me. It happened to the gal that's painting some of the designs up there. And she thought, and it only happened like a couple of times, and she's like, oh, because there's all kinds of rabbits up there. She's like, oh, I just figured it was like a rabbit or something trying to get in or get out or what. No.
See, I was going to offer to help build sets, but now I don't want to.
But it doesn't happen when there's more than one person up there.
Right.
Which makes it sound like a setup again, and I get that.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't been there and witnessed it, I would have been like, it's a setup.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But once you kind of go through something like that, you can explain a lot of stuff away, like we've talked about. But when it happens, and then you ask it to happen, and it happens,
right.
It's kind of weird, especially when there's nobody there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, my ghost stories are just some that, and I've got so many more that
I
have
a very wholesome one.
Oh,
Yes.
do it.
So my mom's house, she had like 2 entrances to the kitchen. And so it's kind of like the kitchen's closed off, but there's 2 doorways. And every time you turn the corner, that first one, you could see a figure. I mean, it was only for a brief second, no details, nothing like that, but you could always see a figure. And me and my sisters have talked about this multiple times. And my one sister, she gets real bad energy from like the basement at my mom's house. I never got that. But what I did see was that figure in the kitchen. And she was just, I truly believe it was just a little old grandma hanging out in the kitchen because that's where she used to hang out.
It was a happy place.
And it was comforting. She was a comforting kind of figure. But that's the other thing. I don't think all this energy is always bad either.
No, in fact, there was an apartment that I lived in that I moved in because it actually felt very welcoming. It was an old building in town. And there was always a comforting presence feeling in that place. Yeah, I agree with that.
We also tore up the carpet in my room at one point, and we found this like picture of a child, and I was like, "Oh, it's her grandkid."
You create the story.
One of those like real old photos too. You're like, "This is a little crispy, crunchy," but yeah, I was like, "Oh, it's the grandkid." I just there's just something about it that just felt good and warm.
She had a pie ready to eat, and
I wish that'd be the only thing that's getting cooked in that kitchen. My mom can't cook anything.
That's a good point, though. I don't think it's always evil.
Yeah.
You know, you watch the shows
or
on
malicious.
TV, and it's always like 56 people died in here.
Yeah.
You're next. You know, and it's like no, because we've had experiences where it's either more playful or a good kind of feeling. You know something's there, but it doesn't really bother you. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's more like watching over you. We were sleeping one night at her folks' place over in Gillette, and we had the window open. And I'm asleep, and she was like reading or something. And literally through the window, you hear, Aaron. And it woke me up. And I looked at her, and she goes, I think that was for you. I'm like, you got the same name, so it's probably...
Did it sound more like an A or an E?
Right, exactly. I'm like, clearly it was eerie.
So I'm going to go and leave you here. I'll be in the car.
Exactly. I'll be in Sheridan. But it's one of those things where it wasn't scary. It was just more like it just wanted to let us know something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. So those are my ghost stories.
Nobody knows what happens after we die. There's faiths that tell you they know, but scientifically we have no idea. Do we go somewhere? Do we disappear? Is it our choice? Can we make the decision to stick around? If so, for how long? Can we interact with the physical world? If so, how? There's a lot of questions, and there's no answers to any of this stuff. And if anybody, a lot of people want to tell you that they've got the answer, but there really isn't. It's up to you. The answer to what happens to us after we die on this earth is completely up to you as to what you want to believe. And as far as what I believe, I don't think I would stick around if it was my decision. Sure, I'd go visit family and things like that, but after you pass on, it's over.
I wouldn't want to go visit family. I don't want to know what you're doing in private.
Right? Yeah. You'd come by at the worst time. You would.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
And then that embarrassment is all yours. It's not shared between the two
you can't
people.
share it. That's true.
Yeah,
it's just on you.
Yep. Fine.
Right?
So walk in, someone's taking a dump. You're like, well, I'll be back in 20, 30
years,
45 minutes.
He's on his phone. Give him an hour.
I think it's something, about our reality that is very individualistic, just like time. Every single one of us, and we can prove this scientifically, travels through time at our own speed. Time is individual, and we're born into this world alone, and we die in this world alone. And so when we cross over, whatever that crossover is, just know that everyone has and everyone will, whatever destination you're going to. And on that, I think that's the final word. What do you think?
Sounds good to me.
All right.
Fist bump.
Fist bump. Happy ghost hunting. This has been the Jackalopes Explore.
Aaron, we've been trying to contact you about your car's extended warranty.